It's not the stock trading. It's not even the money. It's the way that you manage your life and that you use money as a tool to get you where you need to go. Once you're aware of your issues, you'll catch yourself and you'll know that you don't want to pass those on to your children. If you're taking out a loan to simply, for credit card purchases, buy a Louis Vuitton bag, that's not good debt. I mean, that is just a bad decision. You teach your child to sort of stop and think, is this a need or a want? That's really the first thing, needs and wants. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Right. And I think we all get caught up in that.
We know it's super important to talk about money with your family, with your kids and your spouse. My guest today is the author of Money Minded Families. It is an amazing book. Stephanie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So how can parents really get their kids into a healthy money mindset and develop good financial habits for life?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the things I learned in researching for the book is a term I had never heard of. And I've been in the financial industry for over 25 years. And it's a concept called financial socialization. And it essentially, financial socialization, positive or negative, is the way that all of us learn our money habits. And if you're not mindful about them, we're passing on potentially negative habits to our children. So through positive financial socialization, we can, at a very, very young age, teach our kids all the good, lessons that we hear about. Don't give in to instant gratification, research your purchases, all the things you can do. We need to mimic those as parents for our children. And if we can do that, our children will grow up with a very strong foundation and make really sound choices as they get older.
So what if somebody is not actually brought up in such family?
Yeah, so I'm a perfect example of that. I was not brought up that way. I've made more mistakes than I can tell you. And so really it's funny, when I started to write the book, it was a very prescriptive book about, here are games you can play with your kids. Here are some basic lessons you can do. Here are some apps you can give your children. But what I realized was that a lot of people grow up like me and they don't really even have the aptitude to be able to share. And I'm educated in finances now, but not everyone is. So what I started to think about is, okay, what can parents do? And the first thing we can do as parents is just be conscious of what we're doing, conscious of the choices and the decisions we're making, and really learn about what our money personality is. There's a really good quiz, and Financial Times does it. There's lots of other places that do it, but it's, figure out what your baggage is, right? Figure out what you bring either to your marriage or to your children, and then be conscious of those things. And once you're aware of your issues, no matter if they're financial, if it's physical, if it's, working out, eating, you'll once you're aware of them, you'll catch yourself and you'll know that you don't want to pass those on to your children.
So it's kind of like financial therapy. What are some of the biggest harmful myths that you've seen in your experience that parents, families have, that they pass it on to their kids?
Yeah, I think a lot of people focus on, and I've seen you talk about this too. I mean, a lot of people focus on, buying stocks, trading, and that's sound financial advice. And that's the implementation of something. It is not the end all be all. It's really about having a plan, talking about what it is you want to do in your life, talking to your children about what they dream to be, having goals and plans, and then really shifting the perspective that it's not the stock trading. It's not even the money. It's the way that you manage your life and that you use money as a tool to get you where you need to go.
Using money as a tool, that's absolutely, people like the mindset about money, I feel like it needs to change, and people are becoming more aware of it, or maybe it's just me becoming more aware of it and assuming other people are becoming aware of it too. But the money mindset is, I think, first and foremost, understanding that money is just a tool. And your feelings, associations, what you associate with money is also very important when it comes to money management. So you talked about investing, you're like understanding it's not about investing, and understanding that you first need to have a plan before getting into any sort of financial planning or investment planning. That is absolutely correct. But what about one of the biggest challenges that people are having right now? Debt and credit cards. What are some of the biggest pitfalls that families need to avoid around those?
So I was a perfect example of that. When I went to college, I was one of those, I went after the shiny objects, and they were handing out credit cards for t-shirts or game tickets or whatever it was. And I signed up for all the different credit cards. And next thing you know, I leave college and I had not only some student loan debt, but I had credit card debt. And I just wasn't aware. I lacked awareness that I was getting charged 21%. I bought something and I didn't connect it. And I think there's a lot of people like that. And so, the first thing is don't spend more than you earn. I mean, just simply don't spend more than you earn. And that's difficult, particularly in years like 2020. So I understand that. But to prepare for that, you have things like an emergency fund, right? You have 6 to really 12 months of emergency funding. So you fill that bucket up when you're earning income. And if you have debt, I learned this really through my professional career. I remember I was sitting in a board meeting and the CEO said, there's good debt and bad debt. And I didn't really understand that. I said, well, what does that mean? And it's true. When you can use debt to grow your assets and grow your wealth, that's, to me, and not everyone feels this way, but to me, that's good debt. If you have to take out a loan in order to start a business and you believe in yourself and you can generate, that's good debt. You're building your assets. If you're taking out a loan to simply, for credit card purchases, buy a Louis Vuitton bag, that's not good debt. I mean, that is just a bad decision. Wait until you've saved enough to get that bag. And I guarantee when you've saved enough, that bag's not going to be as meaningful as it was. So, I think it's really, and again, it's the shift in perspective. Debt is another tool to help you grow your wealth and to help you meet your goals. It's not intended to purchase items and have more than, your neighbor does or your girlfriend does. Right.
Absolutely. I kind of look at it as, I look at any sort of purchase as an investment. Is it actually going to add value to my life, or is it just an instant gratification that is going to devalue over time?
Yeah.
A Louis Vuitton bag is a perfect example. So, Stephanie, what can people learn really from your book? Like, I know that it has so many amazing tips about, how people can actually manage their money. But what actually made you write this book? And what are some of the most important things people can get out of it?
Sure. So, what really made me write it is I realized that I've been curious about money, and I didn't grow up with a lot of money, and I was in debt. And so I researched to figure out, how do I figure this out and navigate this path? And I now am a financial advisor, and I teach people about what to do with their money, which is ironic. And so writing the book was me taking lessons that I've learned through my path, through what I've seen really successful people do and clients do. And, not one thing will work for everyone. I think that's really the point of it. So I have stories in there that are easy to read, and just things that will help people kind of check themselves and really think about money differently. And I have to say, it's no longer a luxury, right, to teach your kids about money. It used to be, sometimes you taught your kids about money, sometimes you didn't, but they figured out how to get along. We are in so much debt, just from a governmental standpoint, from corporate standpoint. Our children, whatever they have for retirement, if they do retire, will be whatever they save, whatever they invest personally. No one's going to be giving them, pensions and I don't know what Social Security is going to look like. So it's no longer a luxury. Now it's imperative. Some schools are doing it, not all. So it's up to us as parents to teach our children. And the book, I think, helps to do it in a really sort of gentle way, but also will help parents get themselves to a path of financial wellness as well.
And what age do you recommend for parents to start talking to their kids? What age is too young?
I don't think there is an age that's too young, because it's again, financial socialization starts with socialization, the way we socialize our children, on the playground with other children. Financial socialization is just another extension of that. So whenever there's a topic that comes up with, or leaving, I use the example of my son always has to calculate the tip on checks at a restaurant. It helps him to understand the value of the dollar. It helps him to understand, yes, we're giving back to people who provide a service to us. And it's basic math, which is helpful too. But there's so much just basic interaction. I mean, think about it when you have a 2 and 3-year-old in the grocery store with you, and you're at the checkout line and they're just grabbing for whatever's there. That's a perfect example. You teach your child to sort of stop and think. Is this a need or a want? That's really the first thing, needs and wants. And once you get into a habit of doing that, you'll do it as an adult. And you touched on it earlier. You said, I'll think about, will this add value to my life or not? If you think about that and teach them when they're young that that's the thought process before making a purchase, I mean, that's huge. That'll alleviate them being in debt. And really, I truly think setting them on a strong foundational path.
So I'm going to ask you a question that personally, I think us as a family kind of struggle with. And it's interesting because I am in the financial world. I have a 2-year-old, 2.5-year-old, and my husband is the opposite of money-minded. And it's because of his backstory. And I talk about this a lot with my students as well, because he grew up in a family that was too money-minded, that they didn't get to actually enjoy their money. And his dad passed away early. So it was like, you know what, I want to enjoy my money. So he's that money mindset. And I'm the exact opposite. I grew up with not much. And then I was like, I'm always just trying to count and see how much I have in this investment. And now with the pandemic, so we have money and my husband wants to just keep getting gifts from my daughter, right? Yeah. So it's financial therapy, I know. And I asked everyone, how do you do that? Because I want to give gifts to my daughter and it's becoming like a competition, and he has a story and I have my story. What do you recommend?
Yeah, it's funny. When I talked about the money personality quiz, I took it when I was researching the book and my husband took it. And I am a social value spender, which is not exactly like your husband, but I would guarantee if he took the test, he'd fall in that vein. And no one's 100% anything, but I'm very aware of that. I'm very aware that when I stress shop, I mean, I just do, but I never spend more than I know that I can spend. My husband, on the other hand, gosh, I forget the term, but essentially he's not a risk taker. He's more like you. Right. And I mean, not a risk taker. He's not going to spend a lot of money. He's going to kind of hoarder, I actually think was the term. And if you look at
that is me, I am hoarder.
Exactly.
look at the back.
So, yeah. But so I think it's recognizing that, right? So for your husband, it would be for him to recognize that and then say, okay, if we want to give gifts, let's limit it to whatever. Let's not, give gifts to just because you can doesn't mean you should. Right. And I think we all get caught up in that. So he needs to just change his money mindset.
Right. I know. So I guess we're going to read your book together, Money Minded Families. Thank you, Stephanie, so much for joining today.
Thank you for having me. Take care.
You guys at home, thank you so much for tuning in. Comment below, what do you think your money personality is? And actually, after you read the book, go ahead and comment and tell us what you took away from the book. Like and subscribe and share this video with anyone in your group circle, in your friend circle who could take benefit from talking money to their families. I'll see you next time.